Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Boogie History. And today, probably, I know you've seen a lot of really, you know, legendary people in my podcasts and videos, but today is going to be a really exciting time for me because we have Mike Lambresi, who started boogie boarding at an early age and then had a huge career in boogie boarding and went on to do a surfing career also and became a surfing champion. So I'm really excited to be talking and having a video chat with Mike today. But before we get started, I just want to let you know that this video is recording live today on Facebook and it will be going over to YouTube if you don't have a chance to watch it in its entirety today. You can go back to our Put Your Body on a Boogie YouTube page and you can see it there. So I'm hoping that you'll enjoy it. Also, on our Put Your Body on a Boogie page, we now have a new merchandise section where you can get historical stuff like WBA, the first bodyboarding circuit. The Western Boogie Association has some merchandise over there, which is like t-shirts and, little wall plaques and stuff like that. And also we've got the BIM series. We have the I Love Bodyboarding or Boogie Boarding series. Tom Morey we have a special legendary series with a picture of him on some merchandise. So I hope you go over and check that. The link is on the Put Your Body on a Boogie group page on Facebook. Okay, so let's get started with Mike. I cannot wait to talk a little bit about him. We have a huge history to go over today, and we didn't decide how long it's going to be. We're going to just let it rip. So let's bring in Mike. Hey, brother.
Hey, Patty, how are you?
It is so good to see you. What a time we've got to talk about today, because I think for you, Mike, it's going to be very inspirational for any of the young groms that are out there learning how to boogie board like you did, maybe wanting to go into the ocean more. So thank you for joining me. And let's get started on, first of all, I know a lot of people want to know, how are you doing? You had a serious injury this year, and how you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. It's been about 7 months now.
Mm.
And over the course of that 7 months, there's been a lot of challenges. I almost lost my left foot. And thanks to, good doctors and my wife being on the ball and getting me to the hospital quick because we were down in Mexico.
Wow. Okay.
8 surgeries and 2+ months in the hospital and then another month in bed later. And I'm healed up to the point where I'm not any longer in like a wheelchair, which I was.
Oh, wow.
Not using crutches or a walker. I've actually been in the water and bodyboarded. In fact, you and I had a bodyboard day with Tony Prince and the crew.
Yes.
Yeah, and I've done some surfing. That's a challenge, trying to find different items or mechanisms that will protect my heel, which I don't have a heel pad anymore.
Oh, okay.
Um, but all in all, it's although it's been a challenging year in a lot of ways, physically, emotionally, and mentally, I think things are just starting to get to a point where I feel like I'm going to get through this thing okay. And thanks to a lot of support from a lot of people and my wife in particular, I'm here with you. What a great honor to be with you, the godmother of bodyboarding.
Well, thank you so much. Well, listen, we're going to get started on some really good stuff, and I want to go over. You had some stuff to show us about your injury too, but I just wanted to let everybody know right out of the gate that you're looking good, and we got a long history here. So you started out on a boogie board, and it wasn't even called a bodyboard in those days. It was a boogie board. How
Yep.
did you get your? I mean, what did you? How did you get your first boogie board? I mean, what
Well,
was going on there?
growing up in Oceanside, my folks, I guess they love the ocean, so we were always on the beach, and I was on a raft, the old yellow and blue rafts. I remember.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The styrofoam little mats that you could ride, and then they actually started wrapping those.
Right, right.
So
Yeah.
I would ride those. I mean, this is from the time I was probably 5 on
Wow.
up, and I would stand up on those until they broke.
Uh-huh.
So we were always on the water's edge, and I think at about 11, which would have been about 75
Hmm.
or 12,
Yeah.
76,
Yep.
whatever year it was right there. My mom went out and bought a boogie board. We had seen something that, she just might have saw it in the surf shop, and she grabbed
Maybe
that.
Barbie's offshore surf shop, maybe.
That is
Yeah.
probably where it was.
Yeah, because
It
it
was
wouldn't
probably
be
where
out
it
in
was.
the mass merchants or anything in those days.
Yeah, that's when
Yeah.
she was across the street down
Hmm.
the street, um,
Hmm.
from their not their current location way back then. So got that, and wow, that thing was amazing. And all my friends got them,
Hmm.
and we just started playing with them, and we'd be surfing on the side, borrowing surfboards, going on the boogie boards, and it was a really neat time because creativity wise, we were able to just do anything that we could imagine. If you
Yeah.
could think of it, you could try to do it. There
Yeah.
was no, there was a little bit of a groundwork laid by the guys, the first generation, the Zabads, Joey Gibbs,
Oh
and
yeah. Hmm.
all those guys. So we knew how to hold the board properly, set it on rail.
Hmm.
But our whole goal was to do tricks and to
Yeah.
see what could be done. So that's how
Yeah.
it started, and it just blossomed from there. It was an incredible time.
Yeah. Well, you were known, and we probably should just do a little backstory history because that way people can understand when we get into this interview why him and I are kind of looking over at each other, going, "Okay, I know that, I know that answer." But when I first saw Mike, he was 12, so he'd been out in the water already, and he started competing in the Western Boogie Association. I
Yep.
think you remember that. And our goal was to set up teams. So we had the Carlsbad team, the Oceanside team, and the San Clemente team. Now, if any of you watch this later, or I know, Scott and Roger and Tony and all the people that are on these teams will watch it later and they'll go, yep, that was the way it started. It was pure and simple divisions. We'd go out but all this time, these guys are good. Scott and Roger, and as you know,
Oh,
Tony and all those guys are really good. But there was this little guy with blonde hair that was bugging everybody because he was so damn good.
and obnoxious.
Oh, but you didn't even let me finish. But
See, I'm
I said,
still obnoxious.
but there's one thing that set him apart from everybody else. He was when you say obnoxious, I say annoying.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I can get away with, calling Mike out is because we've overcome that over the years a lot. But the thing of it is, I would be putting on these events, and Mike would be going, when's my heat? What time's it fit? When are we over? How do I do that? Da, da, da. Well, I would tell people just keep Mike Lambresi away from me. And if you were there in those days, you can remember me saying, keep this guy away from me because he's just asking me way too many questions and I have work to do with this event. So that's how Mike and I got started.
Well,
And
you were doing everything.
yeah,
You put the events on, you managed them beforehand at the beach, on the scene, did the commentating, oversaw everything, and then you have some little 12 or 11-year-old, pulling on your shirt saying, "Hey, what color jersey? When do I go out?" I mean,
uh,
I remember how I
yeah,
was. I
and
there's no doubt in my mind I would have drove myself bonkers. And I have a wife here who maybe I'll pop her head in soon, who can attest
okay,
to the fact that I'm still a little bit high
annoying.
strung and always saying, "What are we going to do? What's next?" And
Yeah, well, that's great,
yeah.
Mike. I'm glad you can take it because we've laughed about it for years.
Oh
But
yeah,
anyway, so that's where I first saw him, and that's where I first realized that the Bobby Zabez, like he said, Joey's, the Scotts, the Tony Princes, all these guys were so good. But yet here's this little blonde guy, and even when he was up on the scaffolding, he was little, he was short, he didn't match, and so it was like, okay, that must be a force to be reckoned with. You know who else was like that? Mike in those days was Paul Roach. When I first saw him, he was real little blonde that kind of looked like a little kid, but he was ripping.
yep,
That was I remember him being that way too.
yeah.
But
He's
anyway,
absolutely incredible.
yeah.
Oh my
So
goodness.
you go out there. Let's talk about your career in boogie boarding before we get to your career in surfing. So you being the competitive nature that you are, you decided that you wanted to take this to the next level and continue to. Did you work on? I mean, would you just go out and like kind of free form everything when you're out in the water? Did you really actually work on maneuvers for the events?
Well, at first it was just like, we just were creating the maneuvers, and then the event started. It was like, oh my gosh, we have a place to showcase and have contests and have fun. And
Oh, good
I
point.
mentioned Joey and Bobby and those guys as the first guys. And the reason I didn't mention Scott and Roger and Tony and those guys is because, as far as I was concerned, even though they were a little bit older than me, they were my crew.
Right.
They took me in. They're a couple of years younger, I think, than Bobby and them.
Uh huh.
Um, they took me in, and I was obviously too young to drive. And Tony Prince used to pick us up. I mean, he was the San Clemente team, but he would come down with Scott Harrison and Chris Powers and Mark McGuire and pick me up and take
Oh
me down to
yeah.
Big Rock, and we'd do Big Rock.
Wow.
Scott and Roger, though, those two guys, they were like brothers. They took me everywhere. Those guys are still like brothers together. They're still together. It's funny, 30, 40 years later, we see each other, we hang out. It's like not even a day has passed. There's that kind of camaraderie with all of us. But
Well,
um,
just for one moment, isn't that amazing though?
yeah,
I tell people when I'm around Scott, we did it recently for Mike after he was able to get out. We took him out for a day at T Street and we all met afterwards. And I'm looking at the group and I'm going, all these years, almost 47 years later, or whatever it
mhm,
is for me, we never had any instant of drama. We never had any instant of any kind of like feuding other than
never.
maybe competitive. And
Right.
here today on Tom's beautiful product that he created, we have come together and we are still friends. I mean, like big time friends.
Yeah, it's more like a family. It's
It's a
like
whole family.
an extended family, really,
Mhm.
of friendships that
Yep.
have been cultivated over years and years. And it's those early years. They were so tight knit. We did everything together. We traveled to the events together. We would crash on the floor at places together for the events, and then go out and compete. And when you are in that intimate of a setting with a bunch of people that you truly love and like,
Yeah.
that doesn't change,
Mm-mm.
no matter how long it is between times that you visit.
Yep.
That
Yep.
that remains. That
Yep.
doesn't ever go away.
That never goes away, and it never has, and it probably never will. We'll always, to our last days, be good friends.
Yep.
Now, so that's my history with Mike, and then he goes on to compete, and then you go. Uh, at what time did you go pro bodyboarding? Do you remember when you actually became a pro
Okay,
bodyboarder?
so I do, because I was 15.
Okay,
So it was 4 years after we first met.
okay,
But just real quickly, to answer your previous question, yeah, I would practice maneuvers and focus on them because I wanted to be one step ahead of people.
okay,
It wasn't, all just like, hey, we'll just let it fly when it gets out there. I wanted to be the first guy to do a barrel roll in a contest,
okay.
all sorts of stuff. But yeah, so fast forward, the event was Huntington Beach.
Well, just a minute. We go back to that because I just want to realize if there's young Groms watching
Hmm.
that you did go out and you didn't just go out and let it flow. You practiced, and
Oh,
that
oh,
you know,
to this day, that was
yeah,
a staple of my career in bodyboarding and surfing,
yeah.
and I still do it today. It gives me a focus, because it's a
Mhm.
passion. But as you age, you don't let it go. You just want to be better, or the best you can be at your age or in your circumstances. And
Mhm.
that does take practice, and it takes focus.
Yeah.
And then in all of that, the moments happen where it just flows, and the beauty of what you're doing and how much you love it happen.
Mhm.
But it takes effort to get into those situations.
Yeah. I think that's really important that you mentioned that because a lot of people knew you had a lot of natural talent, but so did Guillermo. When I interviewed Guillermo, he's got a lot of natural talent. He was a
Hmm.
young kid like you in Copacabana, but yet he went out and, like you said, focused and practiced, and he became a champion. And I wrote that in the notes that we wanted to get into a little bit of the mindset of a champion, and that's kind of like what you're talking about now. it doesn't
Well,
just happen organically. You worked on it.
yeah, and you also, you paddle out, and I love all those guys, but
Hmm.
I wanted to kill them in the water. I didn't want to beat them. I
Yeah.
wanted to annihilate them. I wanted to humiliate them. I wanted them to know they were fighting for second place. I really did. I wanted them to know that the only chance they had was second place.
Yeah.
Now, that didn't always happen. I didn't win every event, but that was the approach I took. And I was aggressive competitively, and I strategically thought about ways to be one step ahead of them. I knew how many waves I needed and how much time I had. So I knew what I needed to do in the first 3 or 4 minutes of the heat. And, you break it down. And I figured this out early on.
Hmm.
And in more than one occasion in my career, especially when I got into surfing, surfers had words with me and thought I was a little too aggressive. And some of them were my heroes growing up, and then others were my contemporaries. And they were like, you're kind of a jerk. And it's like, wait a minute, that I didn't infringe a rule or anything. I
No,
paddled behind you. I took the wave. I said something sarcastic that might have rattled you a little bit. That's not my fault. You're weak in the head.
I would have just said,
Toughen
"Hey,
up.
I'm me. Deal with it." I mean, really,
Yeah,
when you get older, that's kind of what you have to think about. Hey, this is who I am. Deal with it. If you like
right.
it, fine. If you don't, bye. But
And it
anyway,
was for me, it was like I knew this is going to
yeah,
be something that takes me a long ways in life, I hope.
yeah, and it
Uh,
did.
I dreamt of being a pro surfer as I was a pro bodyboarder. I mean, that was my ambition and goal. And um, the guys that rise to the crop in any sport are intense.
That's
There's a
right.
lot of ability out there. There's ability beyond anything you can imagine that people have no idea about in bodyboarding and or
Hmm.
surfing because they don't compete. And we
Right,
focus on competitive sports.
right.
But the difference is the competitors have a different mindset
They do.
than those amazing, beyond incredible free surfers that are
Yeah,
out there
yeah,
and
yeah,
free surfing bodyboarders.
yeah. It's quite an intensity.
It
All
is.
right, so we'll cap up the bodyboarding. But do you have anything that you wanted? I know that you were the one that was in the Mike Moyer, who was amazing photographer in the surfing world.
Mhm.
Did a photo shoot of you not at
The
the
wedge.
Wedge. Did he go out in the water with you, or was he on the shore?
Oh, no, no, he was in the water.
Oh, he was in the water. You're
I
going to
had
show us that picture, right?
I'm gonna find that. I'd
Okay.
never been to no, I think I'd been to the wedge with, Scott maybe once. Let me find that. I was pretty young. I think I was
Yeah.
about 14 or 15, and
Yeah, I remember you asking me if you could go. Okay, yeah. Let me bring
that's
it up.
the Mach 77, the first ad for that board, which I think changed, was kind of a directional change
Uh-huh.
into a more competitive, faster, slick skin, a little bit stiffer board.
Uh-huh.
And it's not a huge wedge, but it's he came out in the water, shot photos, and that's what we got out of it right there.
Wow. Well, that just says a lot about the Mach 77, which has gone on to be just this historical board, and
Hmm.
you being in part of history made that first ad. And what an honor for Mike Moyer to ask you to go to the Wedge.
I
I
know.
mean, that had to been just the biggest honor of them all.
Well, these photographers, a lot of them go unheralded today. Nowadays, though,
Yeah.
they get the acknowledgement they deserve.
Yeah. Yeah.
But their talent and the risks they take going in the water, in
Yes.
particular,
Uh-huh.
and then obviously they know talent when they see it. They basically are experts at talent,
Yeah.
and for them to invite you on something like that, like Mike did, is
Yeah.
you know it it's a life changing, or I should say it's an event that took place that is like that's something I'll never ever forget. It was just
No,
such a special time.
it was.
Hmm.
Now,
Great feeling.
you have anything other boogie board, photos or anything that was historical at that time?
Well,
Before we get into your surfing career?
Yeah, I got a couple here. I've got a book, like one of those chapbooks I put together of all my clippings because I didn't want to have to carry them around
Oh, there
forever.
you go. Yeah.
So,
You had a lot of like
well,
a lot of media coverage, didn't you? Like,
some of
yeah.
this though that I'm going to show, I want to preface with, I was living with you at the time.
Mhm.
So this is that phase. This was when I was 15, and you took me in, despite the fact that keep that kid away from me because I needed a place. A little hardship in life. I was in high school. I was 15. So there was a couple of local
Let me bring that up closer.
articles. Bob Yelling.
Oh
Bob
yeah,
Yelling
Bob Yelling. Uh-huh.
was the author. And
What does the title say there? Lambresi does what?
Breezy finds quick boogie success.
Wow.
And the next one was written by one of their different writers, but it says Lambresi brings high energy to surfing. Top boogie boarder also excels on surfboard. So at this
Oh,
time, I was already doing double duty.
right.
I
Hmm.
loved bodyboarding and I loved going to all the contests,
Look
but
at
I
that.
actually fell deeply in love with stand-up surfing.
Uh-huh.
So it was a constant back and forth. And in
Yeah.
fact, I did do double duty at events at
Oh, did
times.
you? Oh, wow.
Not on a regular basis, but
Yeah.
every now and again, just because I wanted to see if I could pull it off.
Right. Yeah.
It's tiring surfing two divisions, but I was young at the time, so I was able to do that, and it was pretty exciting.
Yeah. Well, Mike mentioned that at that time of his life where he was living with me, and I just want to do a little side note here that for his high school career, he there was some family stuff, and he had to needed a place, so we our family brought him in,
Yep.
and at that time, you started surfing, and so do you remember your first surfboard?
Well, my first surfboard was a little prior to that.
Oh, it was okay.
I probably was about 13 and a board. My mom went and bought a surfboard literally off of Barbie Barron's rack
Okay.
at offshore, and I rode that. My very first custom surfboard made for me ever was the one that you put under the Christmas tree. I think the first year I was with you. And
Really?
yeah, that was my first custom surfboard, and I think it was a
Wow.
Johnny Boyden surfboard. Harbor
Oh,
Surf
yes.
Gallery.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's right. Boy,
so
you got a good memory.
well, I'd been
Yeah.
borrowing other people's boards, because I was a
Okay.
boogie boarder, and my friends, some of the friends that had surfboard, I said, let me try that thing," and I would ride it, and I'd be like, that's fun. I want one. I gotta.
Oh, wow. Well, you got it then. Okay, well, good. I'm
Yes, I
glad I
did.
got you a surfboard.
Yes,
So,
you
like I
sure
said, I
did.
wanted the audience and the people watching to know that not only am I interviewing Mike, but he's been kind of like a dear, very close family friend of ours, all of ours in our
Oh
family. So,
yeah, Arlo's like a brother, Debbie's like a sister, Alan
yes,
like
we're
a
all real
brother.
dear here, and this interview is long, long, long overdue. However, we felt like, and Tony putting the T Street event together recently for the reunion with Mike, we felt that you know just time gets away from you.
It
Time
does.
it just gets away from you, and I just want to stop for a minute and say, if you're posting a comment in on Facebook, could you add your name too, because our studio here doesn't show who it is. It just says that you're on Facebook. But someone just said, "Hey, Mike, good to see you."
I see that, and it's a Facebook user. That's all I know.
Yeah, so add your name, who it is, and we'll
There's a
say
lot of those.
we'll say back. There was Aloha from Hawaii, and good seeing you, Mike. And so, just if you don't mind, just adding your name, that would be totally awesome.
Thank you guys.
Unless you want to sign up for StreamYard, and then your name will show. Oh, it's Paul Beach.
Hey, Paul.
Yay!
Oh wait, I should have said this. I left his name off. He was part of that Joey Gibbs, Bobby older
That's
crew,
right.
and he was he was boogie boarding the
Oh my
harbor.
God. Yeah, he
I
was.
remember he was a
Yeah,
charging every day out there guy. I looked up to him.
I know. Yes. Well, there's so many. I mean,
I
Paul is
know.
like in that whole quiver of great people out of
Yep.
that era, that when you look at the page I made for Tom for the factory people,
Hmm.
that Paul Beach was in the first Tom Maury and Company factory people like all of us when we worked for Tom. So good seeing you, Paul. Anyway,
Yes, thank
so
you.
we've just kind of segued into Mike's surfing career. It took us like almost 25 minutes to get there, but that's okay because we knew this was going to be a long run.
Yeah, we got
um,
all the time in the world.
we got all the time in the world. And while we're just stopping for a moment before we get into your surfing career, I just want to say, in my videos and podcasts, you'll see this lovely ceramic bowl back here. It's a vase that was made in high school by Mike, and it's in every single one of my videos. And it also on the bottom of them, he etched in "Merry Christmas, Patty." He gave it to me for Christmas. So
That's
that's
43 years old, Patty.
43 years. And I was telling Mike, do you know how many studios and bedrooms and living rooms that pot has been in? I mean, it's just anyway. Thank you once again for letting me take a moment to share that with you. And thank you, Paul. Anybody else want to say anything? Add your name if you don't mind. Okay, so Mike's surfing career probably, if where do you start? I mean, you
Well,
started competing with what circuit did you start competing in?
Western Surfing
Oh,
Association.
the Western Surfing. Okay.
Yeah, I was 14. I entered my first stand-up contest back when they had six-man heats, 15 minutes. Gosh, was it 4 or 6 waves that counted? It was
Oh, really?
unbelievable what we all went through back then.
Yeah.
Finished fourth in that first event and got a taste of surfing success. And from there, it was just how many events can I enter? And I got derailed along the way a little bit, so I didn't quite have the amateur career that a lot of guys had. Just
Uh-huh.
due to um, getting distracted, I should say, with partying and other stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Um,
yeah.
but that was the beginning at 14 is the first surf stand-up contest for me.
Wow.
So
Now, do you have?
I was doing double duty because I was 15 when I won that pro bodyboard event up in Huntington. So I was doing both.
Oh, yes, that's right. So we were talking about this recently at the reunion. So Mike was one of, these people say, oh, I was a pro. We found out that Mike was the first pro that got a check. So basically, that's kind of like in your resume.
Yep.
And Roger Waller also got a check.
Yeah,
So
he
what
was in
that
the other
means
division.
is, yes, that means is the Western Boogie for historical reasons now, because if someone watches this later, because it's going up on YouTube, the Western Boogie was the first association. Mike was the first pro. Now he goes into it's interesting, the Western Surfing Association. We might have got our name off of that. I don't know because it's, boogie surfing, but it didn't say boogie board. It just said Western Boogie. All right,
Right.
so you join the Western Surfing, and then what happens after that?
I the NSSA started, National Scholastic
Oh,
Surfing
yeah.
Association, and I was at Oceanside High School, and I was part of the surf club and the surf team,
Mm-hmm.
and we would compete against the local schools, Carlsbad, Torrey Pines, Encinitas, you name it, and I did every event. Our team didn't win many events, but I pretty much won almost every event. So it was me
Mm-hmm.
and usually 5 guys from the other school in the final. Uh,
Wow.
I did lose though to Torrey Pines, Todd Martin, Bluefoot. He was unbeatable at the time. So yeah, no, I didn't win that one, but the rest of them I did very well in.
Wow. And you uh so you stayed
Oh my
I thought
goodness.
I'd throw that up.
That's that
That
time.
that was like, yeah, that was your sophomore. I think that was sophomore in high school.
Yep.
That's great. Somebody else says, hi, Mike and Patty. Tell us who you are. Write your name behind it. Hi.
Hi guys.
Anyway, okay, so all right, so we got the NSSA. Yeah, those gals put that on for a long time. I mean, that
Yeah,
was like out there.
they're still charging. They're still a formidable amateur
Oh,
organization.
are they are? Oh, I
Oh,
didn't know that.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Wow, to this day. Uh-huh.
Huh?
Now, do they have boogie boarding in the events or just surfing? Do you know?
I honestly don't know. I
Uh-huh.
haven't stayed that involved or in
Yeah,
touch with it, but
yeah,
yeah, I'm not sure.
yeah. But there was a time where I think maybe we wanted to just do our own thing, and that's where we got the Western surfing or Western boogie. It it doesn't really matter, but here you are now doing the NSSA. So, at what point did you feel like you wanted to go pro
Well,
or
it
enter a
was
pro event?
it was less of like I'm going to go pro and more of the California events at the time. Oh, hey, Sean Griffin. Hey, buddy. He's my
So good to see you,
Sean was my we were
wingman.
inseparable in high school.
Yeah, I
We were
know
best friends. We did everything together. I think I abused the heck out of him.
you
He
did.
was a patient, kind person, and I was me. But yeah, always good to see Sean. No matter how many years it's been.
I know he's a delightful human being.
Yep. So I went.
Mm,
California at the time was doing pro-am events. Okay, so I
mhm.
would enter as an amateur, and I
Okay.
think the first pro-am event I entered was at Seaside Beach, and as an amateur, I came second. I believe it was second place,
Mhm.
and that was the beginning. Just any event I can get my hands on. They had the Stubbies
Oh
uh,
yeah, that's right.
trials
Yeah.
at Trestles. I'd done a few pro-am events and did pretty well. And I surfed the Stubby trials in '82 as an amateur and had my first man-on-man or one against one experience
Uh huh.
and won that first heat and then lost to local legend David Barr.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's
he
right.
went on to be in the final, and this is actually a historic event. He lost to the up and coming Tom Curran in
Got it.
6 foot freight train rights at lower trestles. Um,
Wow.
but then the next year, I entered that event as a pro and won the event. So that was the beginning for
Of
me.
your pro
Yeah.
career. Now you have some footage of some fun stuff in your pro career that we could
Mhm.
watch. I know you showed me some stuff that was really, really entertaining.
It's a little off the beaten path of competition, but
Hmm.
as a
But
competitor,
you got kind of well known. You wouldn't have got these opportunities had you not been a little bit well known. Is that right? I mean, they picked you
yeah,
because you're yeah. Okay.
yeah. So
So
the
this was
first one, I'll put the clip up here if you want, is
okay.
MTV back then was starting to branch off and do beach MTV and different things of that nature. So um, this is before Will Smith became the megastar that he is.
Hmm.
And he came down and they did a little piece on me. Here it is.
My man. Yeah, ho, in the house. DJ Jazzy Jeff. And yours truly, the
Uh-oh.
Funky Fresh in the flesh, the
There you
Funky
go.
Fresh Prince. We're here with three-time surfing champion, Mike Lambresi. Mike, you're a surfer, right? That's right. You do it well? Pretty well. I've been doing this professionally for about 10 years. Really? All right, well, see, my man got here what is known as the Sunkiss Thrill Cam. It's like Sunkiss hooked it up, right? It looks like, they probably could have did a little better job. They painted it orange, like the Sunkiss orange. All right, so look, man, I tell you what, why don't you go ahead out there and show us what it looks like from the surfer's perspective. This is new. This is news. See, MTV always brings you new stuff. Come on, Mike, beat it. I want to how you surf with a big camera sitting on the front. I'm wondering about that.
That is so funny. That big camera.
Look, in the tub? In the tub. It's probably not that much fun, though. Probably hurt your knees and stuff like that. Let's see what it looks like.
Oh my gosh, that's too.
Far out there, man. Real far. But you don't like the water, though, right? No, I'm scared of water. You are? This is kind of cool. They ain't have too many places to surf back in the hood, though. Nah, not at all. But let's just see what it looks like. I think the camera's going to be decent.
Now, how old were you there?
Let's see. I would have been about 28.
Wow, you're surfing pretty good, dude.
Yeah, that was right after my third pro title. And I started getting a lot of calls to do different types of endorsements and shows, etc.
Segment presented by Sunkiss Orange Soda. What are you going to do with these 24-inch pythons get wrapped around you?
Oh my god, that's too funny.
To another block of music. What are you going to do?
What are you gonna do?
McDonald's very, very large water sports, Mike Lambresi. tells us all about surfing. Let's take a look.
Talk about East
Hi, I'm
Coast.
Mike Lambresi from McDonald's. Very, very large world of sports. Today, let's talk surfing.
Dang.
Surfing is a very physical sport. It's real demanding on your knees and your back, the twisting and the shock absorbing, when you free fall on a wave and stuff. Some of the basic things that you need to know when you first learn to surf are you have to keep your balance and your center of gravity centered straight over your board. You have to keep your knees bent and use your arms for balance. If you lean away from your board and you hit a piece of chalk or anything, you're going to fall flat on your face. So you have to stay balanced right over your board. In the cutback, you want to keep your knees bent, your body centered over your board, and you're going to be making a 180-degree change in direction back into the wave. And you want to point your direction with your arms, and your body will follow when you cut back. There's a lot of people that are involved in surfing nowadays, and a lot of times it's crowded out in the lineup. And there's been a lot of injuries due to the nose of surfboards being really sharp. So I think it's essential that people use nose guards on their board. They're made out of rubber. And just to always be looking out for other people and to be defensive like you're driving a car or something. Watch out where you're going and watch out for the people around you. Be aware of the conditions when you go out. There's a lot of rip currents and there's a lot of rocks and jetties and piers around. So you have to be familiar with the ocean before you want to start learning how to surf. For McDonald's, very, very large world of sports, I'm Mike Lambresi. Good luck with your surfing.
That's classic.
Hey, Mike.
That is classic. So was that McDonald's hamburgers? Is that what that was?
Probably a hamburger and a shake or something. Hey, perfect meal before a surf, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. So now you went on to do so they saw you doing these commercials, and then you went on to be a announcer also with ESPN.
I did some work for Dynacom, which had
Okay.
the contract with ESPN.
Mhm.
They also had contracts depending on which events they were for with Prime Sports, Prime Ticket, so I did both. And that was after the major part of my surfing career had ended. I started phasing into doing the color analyst type of work, just giving people a better description of what was going on.
Oh, okay.
Why did the surfer do that particular move? Strategically, what was he thinking? Trying to get into their head and then explain that to people. Just like if you're watching any sport.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Well, you can see by what we've talked about here so far that Mike just, had a brilliant career in bodyboarding, which is like going to go up on our Boogie history page, and then actually evolved into surfing. Now today, let's bring it up to today. Today, we still have, like many people we know, Mike Stewart in the bodyboarding world. All the people we know, Scott and Roger and Glarmy and all these people that are your age, basically, are still ripping.
Oh yeah.
And you showed me a picture of you yesterday. Do you have that to show the people? I mean, let's bring it up to today.
Okay.
Now this is we're going to show this, and then we're going to show. Mike showed me his room, what he's gone through with his therapy. So when you see this, you know that it is.
So getting to this point has been very, very physically challenging in a lot of ways, because when you get an injury like I sustained, so the first thing is I have no heel, because they literally took the skin from the top of my upper thigh to wrap around the bottom bone and recreate or put skin where there used to be a heel. Well, that doesn't replace the cushion that is built into your heel that goes between the skin and the bone. So the bone is right up against the skin. So I've had to have use different things. I've tried, I can't even tell you how many countless things my wife's bought off of Amazon, plus with doctors and everything, to find what will work for me.
Mm-hmm.
But there's other elements that happen here when people get injured. You spend 2 months in a hospital bed, a month and a half in your own bed, not being able to move, especially at 58, and things tighten up. And then when I had the fall, they're still trying to figure out if there's other damage. I have MRIs coming up, so my hips lock up. So there's days that I go surfing, my hips won't work. I can't surf. There's days I can't even walk
Wow.
for 15 minutes. And then there's days everything comes together. And yesterday was one of those days.
Oh, that's so
and
awesome. Let's see
my
this.
wife went out and shot. And that's just a single photo from a sequence that she took.
Oh, wow.
But
that looks very much like your style of the old days. And that style was called, it had a name.
We were the rip, tear, lacerate generation.
Okay.
You attack anything. But, I think the part is I'm starting to be able to use my legs again. I can't surf every day. I'm finding the right things that'll work on my heel, after a lot of experimentation. I'm actually seeing a foot doctor. I'm getting a cast mold made to fill in the gaps from where my foot's different.
Okay.
So that I can walk longer distances. And because I'm going to have to go back to work here soon.
Right.
But I'm going to have to be able to walk for periods of time and stand on my foot, without having shooting nerve damage going down it and all these other things. So,
yeah. So in your quiver, you decided to go back out in the water in your recovery. You knew you had to get in the ocean. So what was the first thing you thought of when you said, I think I need to get back out in the ocean?
All right. I thought of bodyboarding.
Oh, look at that.
And guess who I went and saw? I was literally,
your surrogate auntie.
That's right. I was literally at the plastic surgeon, and he said in 2 weeks, it'll be 3 months from the major final surgery, which was the 7th of 8 surgeries, but it was the big one. He said at that point, everything should be closed up enough to where you can go back in the ocean. He said, of course, take it easy. You're not ready to surf. You're going to have to just whatever you can tolerate. I literally called Deb and Joe on the way back from the appointment, and they said, come down. I went straight there from the doctor's office, got the bodyboard, a set of fins. Deb's already been giving me leashes for my surfboards, the Bullies leashes. So I did that and went and got my wife, and she came down to the beach. It might have been that day. I didn't wait the 2 weeks like I was supposed to. And put on the set of fins and a boogie board for the first time in many years, and went boogie boarding.
Boy, I'd sure like to see a picture of that if you had that.
I actually...
Does Robin have any of those? That would
I think I put a video on Instagram.
Okay. Well, we know that you ripped when you went out. I mean, if you showed that picture of you surfing yesterday. Now, this is what we were talking about in the mindset of a champion. They wait, hold on. Let me bring this up full screen.
Okay, so this my first day here. Let's try it again. First day back in the water on a boogie board. And I hadn't been on a boogie board in 20 years, to be honest, maybe longer.
50 some odd years old.
Yeah. And then, yep. So that was the moment.
Wow.
First time back in the water.
Wow. That is awesome.
Which led to the get together at T Street that Tony Prince put together.
Yeah. And that was just for those of you that didn't hear about it or know about it or saw any of the pictures about it, to have Mike back, pretty much with us, because he was out for so long, and then not to be able to, participate in any hospital time with him or anything because of COVID and all the restrictions. It was just a great day, probably one that we'll all remember. And they gave you, are you able to show the board the welcome back board?
Yeah. So this is the back room. I call it my room mostly because I get sent here a lot by my wife. So first of all, there's her painting she did for me.
That is so beautiful. Let me bring it up full screen. Bring that back. And also the backdrop of our video today is that picture. And tell the story how Robin, through all this, has been with you, and then she now has been re-energized also in her art.
She has been the backbone of my recovery. I wouldn't be here. Literally, I would not be alive without her today, because there's so many elements that go into it, and she's had to go through all of them.
Yeah.
And she's a photographer, but she took art as a major in college many years ago and hasn't done anything with it for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And about a week ago, she started painting again, and that's the first piece.
Awesome.
Yep.
That is so awesome.
Now, Tony Prince, all right, my hero, Tony Prince, literally one of my heroes in life. He said, Mike, I want to do a recovery welcome back to you. And we're going to support you at T Street. And you were there, of course, as well as Marcia Maury and Scott Roger. I mean, gosh, the whole crew.
Yeah, the whole crew.
And everybody signed it.
So awesome.
Tony put my personal surfboard photos here, as well as the Boogie boards, the Mach 7, Custom X's.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And then you can see this being my room of recovery. There's my surfboards.
Mm-hmm.
Then you come this way, and you have everything I've been cutting into pieces and taping up and wrapping on my foot to try to make it work.
Oh my God.
And a lot of experimentation. I got some new waterproof tape in last night. That's going to be tried out probably in a couple days if I can get back in the water. There's all the, I literally this is where all the medical stuff happened. I was on a wheelchair. We had crutches. We had walkers. Those are all in the corner because I don't need them anymore.
Yeah, that is
I'm no longer using those.
That is so awesome.
So that's the back room where I get relegated when my wife needs privacy. She sends me either away to the beach or back here into my little sanctuary.
There you go.
And,
well, in Robin's defense, I know that I've talked to, including my son, a lot of surfer/watermen that have said, my dream is to marry somebody that wants to, number one, go to the beach with me or go out in the water with me or stand on the beach and shoot me, photographer.
Yeah.
So many people I've talked to are so, I don't want to say jealous, but let's say envious of you that you have Robin, because she has captured so many moments of you and your surfing, and you do like to surf a lot. So there's a lot of footage, and not to mention, Mike, she doesn't, complain about it. She loves doing it herself. And so you are one lucky hombre. Let me tell you, you are one lucky hombre.
Her photography goes back years before we met, and we met 20 years ago.
Wow.
On the job, and became friends. And, we've been together now and married and married for the last 7 years. But so her photography was already, she was just a great photographer, but she'd never shot moving surfing. Mm-hmm. She shot horses moving because she had horses of her own and rode, and she loved wildlife and stuff like that. But so it took a little bit for her to learn when and where to take the photo, because surfing is moving at a high speed, and the critical part of the turn is something to learn. And she figured it out fast, and she seems to love doing it. And I always jokingly, when we talk about it with other people, it's like, how much better could it be? Mm-hmm. She loves to take photos, and I love to have my photo taking.
And it's perfect.
It's perfect.
It's perfect. You have a perfect scenario. So we have gone so long, almost close to an hour here, and I knew it would happen, and I don't care because I want to hear every morsel of everything about you. But let's wrap it up with just a summary of how you feel today and all the blessings that you've had in your careers, and photos, and wife and family and grandchildren and all that. And
gosh, where do I begin?
Well, let's just start with right here. Let's see this message here. This is from Sean. Great interview. Looking great, Mike. Thanks, Patty, for all your support in my younger years. Well, thank you. Jumping on a plane. So I need to go. Take care, Sean.
Sean, have safe travels. Hopefully,
Yeah,
you guys have a good time.
for sure. So, yeah. So, you've got to lay in bed and think, God, not only am I alive, but I've had a wonderful career. What do you think?
Well, when the boogie boarding and that career was a dream come true.
Hmm.
The professional surfing in the United States and winning 3 titles was amazing. I had a few years on the world tour, finished 18th and 22nd, the only 2 full years I did,
Hmm.
making quarters and semifinals. And my era was Curran and Aki, but there was
Right.
still Sean and MR and all those guys that I grew up
Hmm.
idolizing, competing.
Hmm.
And then the new generation of the Barton Lynches and Damian Hardmans and everybody. So, I've got to experience a lot of the different eras of the two sports, bodyboarding and surfing.
Yes, yes. And then
And
what about the travel? You got to travel a lot too, right?
oh my gosh, well,
What
you and I traveled because in the beginning of the
Oh,
boogie board
yeah,
days, it was put
that's
your
right.
body on a boogie. We had to go to the East Coast and demonstrate how they worked, and then give people an opportunity to ride the boards. And we
Mhm.
went to Hawaii and did that, and that's where Keith Suzuki won his first event that we were at and became
Right.
part of the crew.
That's right.
Um, and then surfing, I mean, heck, when I first started the tour, there was 25 or 30 events over about 11 months, 12 months. There was no
Mhm.
break.
Mm-mm.
And so I was on the road 10 to 11 months a year. And it turns out that was a little more than I really was willing to do. And I got married and started a young family, which is why I stayed at home and focused on the US tour.
Right. Mhm.
Um, and then did world tour events as they got into certain areas. Like I'd fly to Japan and do an event because I had a sponsor there. I'd go
Mhm.
to Hawaii and surf the events. If an event came to California, they had the Coldwater Classic up in Santa Cruz. I would show up and surf the events against all the guys. And when the OP Pro happened, when I was
Yeah.
already off the tour, I upset #1 in the world, Barton Lynch, as a
Oh my gosh,
trialist.
I remember that. Wow.
And he at the time was #1 and won 2 world titles. So I stayed involved with the world tour at that level, as a wild card here and there, while I was raising 3 beautiful children. And now they've given me 5 incredibly beautiful grandchildren.
I know you're a young grandfather.
Yeah, 58, and I have 2 that are about to be 12. So
Wow. That
yeah,
is so
life's
cool.
life's been good. Life has its ups and downs, and
Mhm.
I'm glad to still be here for all the things that
Yeah. Oh, I know.
come ahead, because
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes it's
Well,
tough.
well, I just can't tell you how much I thank you for taking the time with me today. And all these great moments. We could go on like forever.
Hmm.
We might have to even do a part two if you want to put some stuff together, and even have Robin come in if she's around. Let's
Hmm.
say hi to her, and or your grandchildren, whatever you want to
Right.
do. People
Anytime.
people
You know
people
that.
definitely want to hear about your past and all the things that you've overcome. So I want to thank you, Mike. Don't go away. We're going to just kind of encapsulate this whole thing now. And what I wanted to tell everybody was that I did mention that we were going to talk a little bit about the mindset of a champion. And if that, you know, literally did not inspire you, I don't know what would, because here we've taken a young gentleman that loved the ocean and just impassioned it himself, and went on to be a pro bodyboarder, and then saw out of the side of his eyes how much he loved surfing, and then to become just this incredible human being, father, grandfather, husband, and show up today, and then get knocked out with the heat of his life, which would be an injury that he could have lost his life or lost the ability to ever get out in the ocean again. And through that mindset, he's worked through it and become the person he is today, where he can still, like you saw in the footage, go out and rip. So I want to just tell you what an honor it is for me to spend an hour with him this morning, And I hope you, as you watch this on YouTube or later, watch it in entirety, because Mike is really an inspiration for so many people. Even today, in our oldster OG, I'm 76. A lot of these guys are 60 now, late 50s. We're still inspired by Mike Lambresi. So I want to thank you, Mike, for joining me today, and also go over to YouTube, put your body on a boogie, and all my boogie historical videos will show up there. And I got the good pleasure of meeting with a lot of people over these last months. I also I'm starting to put some of Tom's last moments with me, Tom Mori. What I did with Tom was to take and tell him he wanted to invent something else. He was 86 years old. He wanted a factory again. And I said, Tom, the best thing I can do for you is let's capture some of those moments in audio and video. And those last interviews of his are ending up on this YouTube channel. And I really want you to hear him. He's an amazing man at that age. So once again, thank you so much for being a part of my life and the Put Your Body on a Boogie Facebook page, where we put all these things about boogie boarding, and then the history of bodyboarding page now is just for the 70s, 80s, 90s type of material that you want to post. And then, of course, our YouTube channel. And lastly, we've now got a merchandise page where you can buy any of the old WBA that we talked about, merchandise and some BIM stuff and legendary stuff. So thank you once again. I know I go on and on and on, but I want to thank you because we made it just within an hour, which is pretty good when you have an interviewee like Mike Lambresi. And we'll see and talk to you on our next episode. Thank you so much for joining me again.